I just don't buy the narrative that Dan Campbell's propped up by his coordinators. I think he's just an amazing head coach. I think, if anything, they were empowered by him to be their best, and that's why Ben Johnson is coaching Caleb Williams in Chicago now.
All right, boom. NFL preseason is officially over, and we have to talk about some of the biggest news on the gridiron. And no, it's not Rashee Rice's 6-game suspension. It's not Kyle Hamilton's record-breaking contract, but we're going over the Swelsey. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift announced their engagement. Any thoughts on the power couple?
All right, yeah, no, it's good show today, guys. I'll see you later. No, I'm kidding. No, look, I love love. I have to stand by my, I guess you'd call it ethos of that, love and love. So congrats to those two crazy kids. I do have a serious problem with her caption. Your high school English teacher and gym teacher are getting married. You're the most famous person in the world, Taylor Swift, and your now fiance is maybe the best tight end who ever lived. So I get what she's going for there, but she's wrong. So I just want to note that for the record. And yeah, I guess they are dating after all. Kind of crazy. Like, wow. I believe it until
Yeah.
yesterday, I guess.
Yeah, it seems really legitimate now, right? Like after all these years, now it's official. It's Facebook official, as the kids say. So, congratulations to Taylor and Travis on their pending nuptials. Couldn't be happier for you
It kind of
guys.
weakens
You
like
know,
the
I hope
podcast appearance for me, though. Like, I get it. Like, now it's like, all right, so she's on the podcast. All right, now she's teasing her album. Now they were clearly setting it up for the engagement. I think it just kind of takes out the
right.
authenticity of that appearance for me. So I don't know, stock down, I think, maybe for them and for me. But love is love.
All right. Love is love. Gotta love it. And you know what we love? We love division winners around here, Boom. So I'm going to start off today's pod by saying, there's a lot of close races around the NFL and divisions this year, and I think some teams made some headway. Some divisions are looking a little bit tighter than they usually do. And the one I'm going to start with is the NFC North. What do you think about the NFC North this year? What do you think? Who do you think comes out on top?
I'll tell you what, Joe, with all of four teams at 0-0, it's not going to get tighter the rest of the year than right now. But many people say that this is the best division in football. I still need to see a little bit more from the Bears. I want to see how J.J. McCarthy looks for the Vikings before I'm ready to go there. Lions is the 1 seed. People are throwing that around. I could kind of see that playing out, but tough time pick against the Eagles for that. And I don't know. I'm high on the Packers again, but I'm always kind of high on the Packers. That's what happens when you go to school in Wisconsin and you get brainwashed into these things and believing in green magic. So, yeah, I think that's going to shake out probably how it did last year in a way, with Lions on top, some sort of Packers, Bears maybe in the middle, and then I think maybe Vikings on the bottom, honestly.
Yeah, Boom. If there's any one thing we know about predictions is that there's no such thing as a wrong prediction, just teams that don't follow through on those predictions. So I think the Lions are in a really interesting spot. You lose both coordinators this offseason, and it's always kind of an unknown. We know that Dan Campbell's a really good head coach. We know that he was also propped up by his coordinators, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. And now with Ben Johnson going to a division rival with the Bears and hoping to really unlock Caleb Williams, and Aaron Glenn going over to the Jets to try and save the franchise he once played for, it's tough for me to look at the Lions and say same old Lions, right? I know Dan Campbell said recently this is the best that they felt in their 5 years of doing this, which is, they've had some pretty good camps and they've had some pretty good teams. So it's tough to really put them out on top. But if you're asking me to predict the NFC North, I think they're still the most well-rounded team in the division. Jared Goff is still a very good player. It's kind of an unknown what we'll see with John Morton. Oddly, he's been around the way, but I still like the Lions for the division. If you had to look at Caleb Williams, Boom, and say, this is what I expect from him and the Bears this year, what do you think? How do you think that the Chicago season plays
Real
out?
quick, I just don't buy the narrative that Dan Campbell's propped up by his coordinators. I think he's just an amazing head coach. I think, if anything, they were empowered by him to be their best, and that's why Ben Johnson is coaching Caleb Williams in Chicago now. It's going to be a tough first few weeks for them. Like, it's not going to be smooth. I think people really need to set their expectations when it comes to the Bears. Like, this is still a work in progress in terms of Caleb getting what they call the operation together, like lining up snap counts, motions, all the things that Ben Johnson wants to do creatively to maximize Caleb Williams' strengths. So it's going to take a second. maybe halfway through the year they hit their stride and they're able to make a play for that wild card. But yeah, I think patience in the beginning is going to be key. Even though people want to see immediate results, I get that, but it's just not going to happen, in my opinion.
The interesting thing that you mentioned, Boom, is obviously it does take patience, right? And Ben Johnson seems to be a little bit out of it so far after preseason. After preseason game 3, he said, simply put, the offense hasn't been good enough, which is obviously his calling card and what he's come to be known for in the NFL with the Lions and their creative offense and the things that they were running and the way that he helped Jared Goff reach that next level, or that same level he really had a little bit with the Rams. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does with Caleb Williams. Obviously, he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. The talent is there. We saw him do it at USC. It's going to be fun to watch this Bears offense with Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and then these guys and what Ben Johnson can do with them. So give me your pick. Give me your pick, Boom. Give me your prediction. Who's coming out on top of the NFC North? Lions. I think we're in lockstep there. It's tough, but I'm still going to bank on Dan Campbell and what he can do with that team. So we'll see what happens this season. Staying in the NFC East, staying in the NFC, Boom, let's look over to the NFC East, where you have your reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, and Howie Roseman, general manager Howie Roseman, did a little bit of wheeling and dealing this offseason again to help that roster stay at the top. When you look at the NFC East, what's your preview of the way this division is going to fall out?
Yeah, will the Cowboys be in last place or in third place? That's one thing I'm watching for in the NFC East. But yeah, I think it's also a step back year for the Commanders in terms of wins. Like maybe they play better, maybe they're consider themselves a better team, but I don't see them winning 12 games this year just because of the harder schedule. You throw an international game in there. Uh, will they replicate the luck that they had last year? Like they were lucky a lot too, and they deserve credit for parlaying that luck into a deep postseason run. Like that's what good teams do. That's what teams do when that window is open. So that's a credit to them. Will it be there this year? You never know. NFL, man, ball bounces one way one week, bounces a different way the next week. Your results are all over the place. So I do see the Commanders not reaching that 12 win, 11 win threshold. I think is a little bit of a stretch for them. So that's why I have the Eagles again repeating as NFC East champions, which I think would be the first time we get a repeat champion in 20 years since Andy Reid's Eagles teams did it. So that's where I'm at.
All right, Boom. I'm a little intrigued now. You've piqued my interest. So you said the Cowboys to finish 3rd or 4th in the division, not really challenging the Eagles for the top spot. Why are you so down on Dallas?
A lot of reasons, honestly. I have questions about the head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, entering his first season. I have questions about Dak Prescott, who was not healthy last year, who didn't look great when he played, who I think has a lot of pressure on him coming into this year off of the big deal that he signed before opening day last year. And with that defense doesn't have Micah Parsons, how far down the list do you have to go where they're properly ranked in the league? I think it's pretty far. So I have a ton of question marks with the Cowboys. I don't see them being a playoff team this year, quite honestly.
That's interesting. I think looking at Brian Schottenheimer and his coaching odyssey, right? It's been a long, long, long time since his dad coached. Rest in peace, Marty. And now he's finally getting the opportunity with the preeminent franchise in the NFL, one of the most preeminent franchises in all of sports. And here's a guy that, his offenses have been pretty good. He's got familiarity with Dak Prescott. He's been around the way. He's coached in big spots, at least as a coordinator. I'm just not sure what the expectations are with Brian Schottenheimer at this point. I think everybody looked at him as kind of the unsexy hire, right? For a long time, there was talk about, maybe Dion and Jerry would back channel and Dion would end up head coach in Dallas. But when they settled on Schottenheimer, it really just kind of felt like they're settling. So I don't know what Dallas is going to be this year, Boom. To your point, I still think roster-wise, they're probably on par with the Giants. I think the Giants might have a little something going here. I think they're going to be a little bit better than what they're over-under. I think it's set at 5.5 right now, says. I think their defensive line is going to cause a lot more problems for people than they realize. They're with Abdul Carter. We'll see what Kayvon Thibodeau brings this year. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best, if not the best, interior defensive lineman in football. Questions in the secondary, but if that defensive front gets going, they're going to cause a lot of problems in the NFC East. So we'll see what they are. But when we're talking about predictions for the division, you still got the Eagles out up top.
Still have the Eagles at the top, yeah. With them and the Lions, it's kind of like 5 yards of carry, no mistakes. Don't need to overthink this. Like, let's just keep it simple. These are great rosters with solid coaches and just great infrastructure all around. So I feel pretty confident about them, even with the various changes that they've both experienced.
All right, boom. Some might call it the worst division in football. It's the AFC South. But, a lot of moving parts in the division. Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville might make them a little bit more exciting. Still got CJ Stroud with the Texans. And the Colts are in an interesting spot, but Vegas seems to believe that it's some of a tight fight between Houston, Jacksonville, and the Colts. How do you see the AFC South shaping up?
The worst division in football is kind of like your least favorite meal or option on the tasting menu at a Michelin star restaurant. You still got to appreciate it. It's still NFL football. Um, yeah, I mean, Jacksonville's going to be interesting. Like, can Liam Cohen get the most out of Trevor Lawrence if they can? Maybe they have a shot at challenging the Texans for the division. But otherwise, I think it's still the Texans' division to lose just because of how consistent CJ Stroud has been as a starter, even though people want to kind of label him as a sophomore slump guy. I don't think we talk enough about how unoriginal Bobby Slowick, the former offensive coordinator, scheme kind of became at the end of his tenure there. A lot of injuries on his O-line, no real running game. And people forget that they won a playoff game last year and they've played in the divisional round against the number one seed in the last two seasons. So there's a decent run of success there. And I have to think that they'll continue it, other than if, like I said, Lawrence and the Jags are able to get to that next level. The Colts are the Colts and the Titans are the Titans, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Colts, boom, is, Daniel Jones. This is what we're doing to people. This is what we're doing to people watching NFL football on Sundays.
I can't believe how much I've talked about the Colts this offseason. I made a training camp stop there, but I realized, like, people always stop there just because it's convenient when you're swinging through the Midwest and stuff. Like, the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson quarterback competition was such a talking point. Can't believe how much we've talked about the Colts for a 7-10 team at best, and their entire regime's going to be fired at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot about I would, what, I'm not going to lie and say there's a lot about the Colts that are interesting. That's simply not true. I just find the Colts to be an utterly unsexy team. There's Shane Steichen doesn't really do much for me as a head coach to this point. I think he's we talked about it on the last VOD that we did, boom, where, like, the Anthony Richardson thing, I don't think that falls on his shoulders. I think there's a lot more happening there than just him, just Steichen at the helm. So I don't really think the Colts are going to be in contention this year, even with what they hope is a resurgent Daniel Jones. I don't buy that. Jacksonville's a very interesting team because of what they did this offseason, obviously taking the massive jump for Travis Hunter, trading up to grab him, and everything that their GM said he could be and he could represent. And that's a lot of coulds, right? And Liam Cohen is going to have to do something that no head coach has done in a very long time, not since Doug Marrone, and bring him to the playoffs and do something with that team. So I still think, to your point, it's Houston's division to lose. I just think CJ Stroud he's a dynamic playmaker. Like, he's a top young quarterback in the league. Their offensive line, to your point, boom, they were just riddled with injuries last year. And the thing that concerns me most is they seem to still be uncertain along the offensive line. So hopefully they figure it out. There's obviously the Joe Mixon question, which they're not, everybody's kind of been hush on it. I know that they said he's probably going to, very sketchy, very interesting situation. Yeah, we'll see. We should. So we'll see what happens with Joe Mixon there, but I still think, and obviously you mentioned Titans and Cam Ward. We mean no disrespect to the number one overall pick in the draft, but it's another team that just hasn't shown you a lot in recent years, at least roster-wise, to properly support Ward to this point. So we'll see what happens with them. So I still think Houston's the cream of the crop in that division. We'll see how tight it really ends up being when January rolls around.
All right, Joe, let me flip something on you real quick. Vegas has some pretty heavy favorites for division winners. You got the Ravens, you got the Chiefs, you got the Eagles, you got the Bills. Or is there one of those teams that just doesn't really cut it for you right now? Is there one of those teams that you say, you know what? I don't know. I don't think that they're going to win this division, their division this year. Give me something on that.
Yeah, reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated over the last X amount of years. They just went to the Super Bowl. I think the road is getting a lot tougher for the Chiefs. I just do. I mean, Rashee Rice is suspended the first 6 games. Luckily, they still have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown there for Patrick Mahomes to play with. Travis Kelce, I mean, to his own admission, he was kind of checked out the last 2 seasons. And I know we have some great reporting done from Jacob Kamiker on USA Today that his trainer seems to believe that he might be turning a page, which is, something that all trainers will say. And then they end up not performing as well. And then whose fault is it really? So I just look at the division around the Chiefs and say, they have great coaching, right? I mean, Sean Payton is turning Bo Nix into something, and that defense is really, really good in Denver. Jim Harbaugh, we know about Jim Harbaugh and how he wants to just run the rock and pound the rock. And Omarion Hampton should be a bell cow there with Najee Harris. Should be an interesting backfield. And then you look at the Raiders and Pete Carroll and what he's trying to build there in Las Vegas with Geno Smith, and they draft Ashton Genty. So this division around the Chiefs has gotten a lot better. And I think that's really the determining factor. If you had to ask me today, I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos come out on top just because their defense is so good. Patrick Surtain is probably the best cornerback in football next to Sauce Gardner. You could make that argument.
Sauce is so overrated.
It's
sorry.
Oh, don't start. So I know I have, I'm really biased here with the pop figures on my shelf, but I can't go there with Sauce. I think he's very good.
Sorry.
I think he's
not to take away from your Broncos believer.
That's all right.
So go ahead.
No, I'm a believer in the Broncos. I think they have a really good defense. Their pass rush is going to be very good. And Sean Payton, we know, he's got a reputation of being a really good head coach. So I think when you look at the other divisions, I mean, the Bills in the AFC East, do you really believe in the Dolphins this year? I mean, I'm really not. Do you believe in the Patriots with Vrabel? I mean, they could take a step forward if Drake May does. And the Jets, right? We don't like to say SOJ, and Jets fans know what I'm talking about when it comes to the team. So we don't like saying things like that for the Jets. But the Eagles, I mean, we talked about the NFC East and how that division is going to shape up. And the Ravens, the AFC North is going to be, again, interesting division. I mean, Joe Burrow was, an MVP candidate last year with how he played, despite all of the struggles with their roster. The Steelers are the Steelers. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers has left. I mean, I just don't know. Steelers are a very interesting team to me, Boom. We'll see what they end up being. And the Browns, what can you say about the Browns and what they're going to bring to the table this year with Joe Flacco and Kevin Stefanski he's done an immaculate job with that team. I think he's one of the better head coaches in football. Just some quarterback stability. Can we get the man some quarterback stability? So we'll see what the Browns are, but I still think the Ravens are probably the best team in that division. So I know that's a long-winded answer. I just think that if you're looking at the divisions around them, I think the Chiefs have the toughest path to win the AFC West, one of the toughest paths to walk in all of the AFC this year.